you forget that you might have actually touched some people along the way.
Hi, I'm Vlad Bresnix. Welcome back to the BresnixCast, episode number 63. We had a slight break for a week there. I ended up in the hospital, broke my collarbone. It's a long story, but it hurts like fuck, but I'm getting better. But anyway, we are back with the shows, and we're back with another New Music Sunday, and we've got a good one. My guest this time was Kier Junos from the Canadian indie rock band Casinos. Casinos are a pretty cool band. I think you'll like their stuff if you like indie rock. You'll like it. You know, they're not even just your standard indie rock band either. You know, like they're much more interesting. Let's just put it that way. Why not have a listen for yourself? So, from their album People Watching, this is Truth. So I am here with Kier Junos from Casinos. Kier, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be on the program, Vlad.
Now, it's great to have you on. I've been enjoying your album, which we will talk about. But it is a New Music Sunday, so why don't you start by introducing yourself to the listeners? So tell us a bit about yourself and Casinos.
Well, certainly. My name's Kier Junos, and I'm I'm the lead singer in an indie rock band called Casinos, and we're from Abbotsford, British Columbia, and that's a city just a little ways out from Vancouver, just east of Vancouver. And we've been playing music in the Fraser Valley here. That's the region that we're in. We've been playing music in the Fraser Valley since 2008. Really, this is really our 10-year milestone with the new album that we've released called People Watching. It marks 10 years of bandhood. Zachary and I, Zach's our lead guitarist. We started the band in 2008 when we were both 14. Now we're both 24, 25, and really surprised by by people following us then and now, really. So we play a lot of indie rock tunes that are inspired by a lot of popular UK rock bands, for one, actually, that were very popular during the early 2000s. Then some American bands like The Strokes and things like that, and Canadian acts like Tokyo Police Club, among others. So that's a little about us.
So that's interesting because, I've had you kind of pegged down as like a new band, but you're saying you've been together from 2008, but you've only really just released the one album, correct?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, prior to that, there was a 4-track EP that we recorded, and yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, before that, we released even another EP. I think it was in 2009 or something like that. But there were songs that we wrote when we were very, very young as a band.
So what was the reason for not doing anything like proper? Was it because you were kind of young at the time?
We were pretty young. We were just finding ourselves out for a large portion of the time, right? We didn't have the experience. We tried our hand at recordings and weren't able to do it in in a way that we think would be, I guess, becoming of the songs in this day and age. It took that long to put out a debut album, for sure. And beyond that, just the circumstances of life, right? Like it's difficult to be a musician full time when there's so many other things that you have to take care of, and when you got to feed yourself, right? Besides music, we have hustles outside. We have hustles in our lives that we have to take care of, and I think all of that is part of why it took so long to put out a release. But this was, I'm happy that it's finally out.
Yeah, well, that's cool. And you need to tell us about you alluded to, you like some of the kind of UK indie bands, and I'm quite interested because, I mean, if you lived in the UK, especially in the 90s and the early 2000s, to kind of adapt a line from Wayne's World, you were practically issued with indie music.
Right. So the question is, which UK bands I was listening to particularly? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I just asked it in a really weird way. You'll get used to it. It's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. Well, you know what? When I was in high school, and from 2008 to 2012, I mean, the Arctic Monkeys were becoming very popular out there, right? And now they're incredibly popular worldwide. Maybe they didn't anticipate that when they started out, because they were pretty young, just like us when they started out. I don't even know if they knew how to play the guitars when they were 17, 18 when they started their band, but that was a band that I listened to a lot. And then also another very popular band called The Vaccines. I'm very fond of them.
Ah, yes.
Really the Vaccines. And then, I mean, we've always loved Oasis here, Zach particularly. that band, and in when it comes to more modern UK bands like that are around now, I really love Superfood. I don't know if you've heard of. I think they're from Birmingham. Uh, um, they're really quite great, and then there was kind of this other band called Circle Waves that I really liked.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
See, that one.
Yeah, those are some of the bands that the UK bands that we've really been fond of. I mean, we had the opportunity to even open for a band that was based in the UK for a while. They were called the Struts. I don't know if you've ever heard of those guys, but
The Strats.
they basically rewrote the Struts. Yeah, they were kind of like a glam rock revival sort of thing.
No, I don't know.
Their first album didn't do that great in the UK, so I think they tried to re-release it in America. So they're based in LA now, but we opened for them in Vancouver some years ago. So yeah. Anyway, that kind of sums up our penchant for UK rock bands.
That's pretty cool. And now it's interesting that you mentioned the Arctic Monkeys, right? Because I remember when they came out and they had that video for "I Bet You Look Good in the Dance Floor," and it was like done live. It was like made to look like one of those old 70s music programs, like the old Grey Whistle Test and stuff like that. And I actually quite liked the stuff at first. And see, even now, I hear them on the radio all the time, and I'm interested by what they do, and they're definitely really good musicians, and they have good ways of constructing songs, but I just don't have any interest in listening to it anymore for some reason. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, the new stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah, like the newer stuff. I still think it's
Right,
well
yeah,
done. It's well made music. It's well composed music. It's well. I'm just not that interested in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. I kind of stopped following the Arctic Monkeys too after, like, I don't know, after their album "Suck It and See," because I think when you come to the Arctic Monkeys, right, like they had this incredibly youthful sound, right, and they were pretty unassuming dudes, just a bunch of guys from like Sheffield that were just, kind of wrote about being punks, you know what I mean? And then now they're completely glammed up, and I think they had Rick Rubin as a producer on a lot of the records and newer records, and they had this sort of new sort of bravado that was, in my mind, unfamiliar to the band, and it kind of bored me for a while, honestly. But in my opinion, I think the writing that they do, it's though I can't speak to the new album, I think the writing that they do now is much more complex than what they initially had. That's just my view, though.
Yeah, I definitely think the aesthetics thing, because I remember at the time when they first came out, that was something people were really talking about, because they just looked like a bunch of guys that were like just off the street, like I was thinking, like, I dress fancier than these guys, you know what I mean? They were really so plain and just ordinary, and I think that was something that really kind of like, I don't want to say it was a gimmick, but it kind of worked like a gimmick, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think people identified with that, right? They were commoners.
Aye, they were just like anyone else. It was interesting. No, it's an interesting band. I don't know, did that Alex Turner guy, did he not like get pissed sometime and start calling himself a genius or something like that? I think I read something about that.
I don't have to read the interviews that much.
I guess was that an award ceremony or something like that? I would have to look it up. I don't know. Anyway, let's get back to you. I always go off in tangents. We can talk about that another time. Right, so your album that we were talking about is People Watching, and it's interesting because, I mean, you guys do have like the kind of indie rock sound, but I think the way you do it is, it's more interesting, it's better composed, and I think you could even say, I don't use this as a negative, as a pejorative word, I think you could say it has a more kind of progressive tone to it. So tell us about the album.
Right, like progressive, as in something like a band like.
I'm using progressive as in moving forwards. I'm not saying you sound like Yes or something like that, or like, you know.
Yeah, I was like, we're not that.
You dress like a flower, like Peter Gabriel or some shit.
Well, yeah, it's there's something that, there's a lot of pop music that I'm very fond of. And what I find, I kind of, I grew up playing piano, and, I learned classical music, and that gave me a great foundation for a lot of the instruments I played, guitar in particular. And it made me appreciate very complete pop structures, not complex, but something beyond the 1-4-5. If you listen to a band like Huey Lewis and the News, they have very complete pop structures where they'll go through a lot of different variations of chords to get back to the resolving chord of the song. When it comes to the musicality of people watching, and how that is all written, I really was looking to write song structures that were very complete in chord progressions and had lots of color, using chords that used that had a lot of tension and releasing that tension. Very, very quickly, that's kind of what sums up the writing of majority of people watching, save for some songs that were maybe deliberately created to be more simple. In terms of lyrical content and what these songs are about, well, there's a reason why it's called people watching. People watching, it's you sit around, you're on a bench somewhere, and you kind of impose, narratives on people's lives. They walk by you, and you just have a guess at what they're doing. I'm sure you're familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I remember when I was doing an interview with the journalist from Raspberry Magazine, which is a literary mag here in the Fraser Valley, and I told him how I like to write vignettes. I like writing vignettes about people, vignettes, little snapshots of their lives in the songs that I write, and maybe they would be more fiction, maybe they'd be nonfiction, but he described it as a complex form of people watching, and that was a really great way to kind of sum it up. So a lot of these songs, they have stories about people that I've met on my travels, and beyond that, we also delve in sort of a veiled way, political allegory as well. We don't live in a vacuum when we write music, and the times of our lives. Like I find that I need to find a way to reflect on that, because I feel like it's my responsibility as someone who's creating art, to reflect on what's happening, because bands like mine that aren't super huge or anything like that, like I feel like we're the real folk music, you know what I mean? So I kind of want to be a vessel for that as well, a reflection of what's happening in this day and age, and some of that sentiment, it does get onto people watching. There are a variety of themes that I think you'll find there, but they may not be immediately viewable unless you asked me.
Interesting. And it's interesting. I actually grew up playing the piano as well, and was introduced to classical music in that way too. And it's so true what you say about that, because like, even I said this on a show fairly recently as well, even when I got into something like electronic music, I could tell sometimes that these electronic musicians, even though they were using things like synthesizers and samples, they were using like structures, like classical music structures, to create these kind of songs and stuff like that. And you don't realize how like something like that can, underpin, something that you would think is a million miles away from classical music.
Absolutely.
I think it's always something I found pretty interesting about it. And I see as well that you did the album design, and I've been looking at the cover for a while, and I don't know, I don't want to say it's some weirdo in the bushes, but like, tell us what's going on there.
It kind of looks like that, doesn't it? Well, I mean, people watching, it could be a variety of things, right? It could be as innocuous as you or I sitting on a bench at the beach, watching people walk on the boardwalk, and like I said, imposing our idea of what their lives might be like. Or maybe it's something a little more insidious, like a man in a suit hiding behind some bushes watching, right? So that's just a form of people watching that I decided to play on and turn into the cover because I thought that it created some intrigue, and yeah, it's what my feelings were telling me to create at the time.
Interesting. And like, where do you see like your sound going? And do you think that you keep up the kind of people watching thing when you're writing songs?
Uh, yeah, yes. In terms of musical sound, I think we are introducing some more progressive elements into the music, in the yes sense, maybe, in small ways. Uh, we're trying to be more collaborative as songwriters. You know, for the majority of the songs that we write, I tend to bring the main structure forward, right? And so I kind of want other people to create those structures as well, to kind of see what kind of ideas they have and what structures they would create, right? Because it's very familiar for everybody to kind of work off a structure I've created. In terms of lyrical content or themes, like I was saying, I think that I'm a journalist as well. You know, I worked in print journalism for some time. I work in television now. I started as a music journalist myself,
Really?
and yeah. I started as a music journalist myself, and I've always been enamored with the art of telling stories with concrete language. And what I mean by that is using language and this goes for any kind of writing, songwriting, poetry, music journalism. I like using language that people can grasp, that people find palpable, that people can identify with, even if they don't know what the theme is. They can grasp what I'm talking about, and that kind of language lends itself really well to any kind of storytelling. So it's definitely something I'm going to keep doing when I write when I write these songs. What I'm delving more into is definitely sort of like a veiled political allegory. Songs that hint at, I guess, the struggle of humanity today. Because I feel like it's my responsibility to reflect on that. I feel like it's a responsibility of many artists to reflect on what's going on in the world today, because artists make time to think for everybody else, and show them a mirror of what they're participating in. It's so easy to get caught up in your 9-to-5 job and turn off almost and forget about the big picture, about thinking about why you're there. And I think it's the job of philosophers, the job of people that are literary, people that are scholars and artists, to create work responsibly. So then when the everyday person who isn't maybe a musician listens to these songs, they can think about themselves and the way they participate in the world, right? So that's what I'm trying to do in my future works with casinos. That's something that I haven't really done before.
That's quite interesting. And I'm not going to let you away with this. So you said maybe more progressive in the yes sense. Could you expand on that a bit?
Well, very simply, it means we're going to experiment with different time signatures, for one, and see what we can get away with in terms of experimenting sonically and in terms of song structure in a way that's still palatable. I think Casino's music is, a lot of people can identify with it. We really do have an international vision for our music, and if we can somehow incorporate some more technical elements into it that may not be characteristic of a pop rock song, I think that would be very gratifying for us. I'm not sure exactly what it's going to look like yet. I'd have to sit you down in the practice room with us for you to find out.
You're a bit far away for that. I think that, like, as well, it's interesting because, like, you guys do have a sound that, like, even though it is a bit more complex and a bit more, say, different than, like, you know, what might be your standard mainstream indie rock, you do have a sound that could be, like, radio friendly, that could be the kind of thing that could break onto the mainstream, because you do get bands that are more kind of complex, like your Radiohead or your Muse or whatever, that people kind of like, you know what I mean, your Beck or something like that. But,
Yeah.
you know, it's funny, it's almost like you're almost running away from that a little bit, because there's like a whole lot of swearing in your music, and like I just can't imagine on the radio like how that would get how that would get beeped out. It would just take forever.
Yeah. I totally know what you mean. You know, there is a lot of swearing in the music. Why? I guess.
I mean, can
because
you
I guess
imagine
because
Cafe Racer being bleeped out on something?
No, it would just be unbecoming of the song, right? I totally know what you're getting at. I think about radio and think about how important is it to casinos to be on the radio, because even when I listen to the radio here in Canada, they play very, very safe music. You know, is that necessarily something that I think the band needs to participate in when we can get potentially more reach to people that are more interested online, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of why I'm not really concerned about. I'm not saying I wouldn't do radio. I mean, we have songs that are incredibly radio friendly, but it's not a necessity to me, because I think that we can get that reach in different ways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you guys self-released your album, didn't you?
We have.
Yeah, and like, what do you think? 'Cause I ask a lot of people about this kind of thing, you know, like, because like it is a double-edged sword these days, because I mean, it's great how you can just like, you can even record an album in your house, and so, you know, depending on what genre you're doing, I suppose, but you can, you know, like release your own album and stuff like that and get it out there so that people like all over the world can hear it. But then you just do have this problem of, you can do it, so can everybody else, and there's just like so much out there now.
Right. Yeah. So you're asking me, how do we adapt to that to that change in the industry? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. It's you know, what it comes down to is I think making sure that we care about everything that we put into the music, and really care about the quality, and be discerning in what we're writing, and not to take any shortcuts. And beyond that, I'm confident that the casinos has something very unique to offer to people, because, you know, I'm surprised by this, but people from 10 years ago, you know, still reach out to me and ask me what's going on with the band, right? And the fact that we can connect, that I know that we can connect with people in that way, it reassures me that we're doing something right to kind of fulfill that reach that we really want to get. We want a lot of people to hear these songs, right? Beyond that, I mean, I find this also kind of surprising, but we've always had like this handful of people that are really like quite fanatic about the music, and it's almost overwhelming in a way, that they get so excited about what we're putting out. And you forget, you're so caught up in, you know, writing the songs, planning everything, getting all the logistics of the band going, that you forget that you might have actually touched some people along the way. And when I'm reminded that we have done that we have touched people, I know that we can keep doing that. and that might set us apart from maybe anybody else who's creating music out there.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, actually. And so, what is coming up in the future for you guys?
Well, in the we're planning to produce some more music videos for the album. So we'll maybe make like 4 more. We're gonna maybe record a live EP in the future because there's some new songs that we're really itching to get out. And we're trying to just kind of expand where we're playing our live shows. Right now we kind of play in the Fraser Valley for the most part, but we know we kind of have to play in our next biggest market, which is Vancouver. And with the amount of time we have, like we have to work day jobs, you know what I mean? So we can't afford to tour all the time, right? So we have to kind of play what's closest. We kind of want to play in the United States as well, like down in Seattle and in Oregon, around there. That's kind of like the midterm goal that we want to be able to achieve. In the meantime, we just have to keep writing this next batch of songs because we're always writing, and find time to record them again soon. And there's a lot of momentum that we're holding on to, and I make sure to celebrate the little things with the band, so that they feel gratified, because that's very important.
Yeah, absolutely. And is there anything else we should talk about as we come to the end here that we haven't mentioned?
Well, I guess I did want to mention that that right now, I find that being in a band, 90% of it is logistics, just organizing things, and just to do the 10%, which is actually playing the music you want to do. I hope that one day we could take that 90% and shift it to other people, so we could focus on the 10%. That's the dream, I think.
Yeah, I think it's a dream with everything. Same with podcasting or anything else like that. I would love to be able to pay a producer to do all the crap I have to do.
Yeah, right. Like, so you have someone to keep the books, that kind of thing. Yeah, I think when it comes to labels and things like that, we're not. I have this idea. I might be misinformed here, but I have this idea that the entire idea of being signed to like a record or something like that, it's I don't know how valuable it is. It depends on the label, really. But we kind of want to. I think we have to be more entrepreneurial as musicians in this day and age, and if we can show to like a publicist or like or a manager or a booking manager that we could come to them as a partner rather than someone who's looking for a handout, I think we'll be more successful.
That's an interesting way of looking at it, because I hear a lot of people on like either sides of the fence these days. Some people saying like, it's still better to be on a label, they have all the control of all the stuff, and some people saying, no, you don't need a label at all. But you're kind of like somewhere in the middle. You're kind of saying like, we could, it's not that we would be part of your label, it's that we would work with your label, kind of thing.
Exactly. Because, I kind of take the role as the band's manager for the most part, right? I make sure that all the practices are organized. Being a journalist, I write press releases, that kind of thing. So I do the publicity too, right? But it's not like I want to do that stuff. I just like I want to be doing all the graphic design all the damn time. Like, yeah. I came here to play music, right? Yeah. So I'd like the band to achieve some sort of notoriety that we'd be able to afford publicists and managers, so we could focus on what we came to do here in the first place.
Absolutely. I think it's the same with everything, isn't it? Like, you want to have that kind of that business person so that you can just do the art all the time and not have to do all the other boring stuff that comes with the art. Exactly.
And hey, like, I'm good at the logistics, but I don't need to do it. You know what I mean? I don't. Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say.
Well, maybe one day you'll be able to pay someone to do it. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Kier, right, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I've really enjoyed the conversation, man.
Yeah, thank you, Vlad, for having me on.
So my thanks again to Kier for coming on the show. Really cool conversation. I really enjoyed it. Get in there, buy their album. People watching, it's only $7 Canadian on Bandcamp. Support independent music. That's what we want to see. So thank you for listening. That is us for yet another show. The website, BresnixCast.com. Follow me on Twitter, at Vladimir Bresnix. I put all these shows up on YouTube as well, so subscribe to me on YouTube. Give me some love there. My album is out on all your favourite digital platforms. Just search Vladimir Bresnix and you will find me. And we'll finish off with some more casinos. So from people watching again, this is Aiming.